Hey, it's Thursday. What does that mean, babe?
It's the More Than I Do live virtual podcast.
All right. Hey. It's time to hang out with Derek and Sherelle in the More Than I Do virtual live podcast. I'm Sherelle.
And I'm Derek.
I just want to make sure y'all weren't confused.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in today. The More Than I Do podcast is a podcast where we talk about being married and in business. Why? Because we've been married for
16 years and in business for 9. September started the 9th year. So happy birthday.
We started 9 years.
Happy birthday to being in business together for 9 years. And I think we've learned a few things down the road that we have something to say that can help some people.
We absolutely have something to say. And no one is talking about being married and being in business. And trust us when we say that it's something to it.
You think marriages work? Being in business together is even more work.
That's right. Absolutely. And, I really just want to quickly, you talked about us being 9 years old this month, which is amazing. Absolutely amazing. But there's one thing that I do personally every year around this time, and I don't think I ever shared it with you. Okay. So before we get started with today's podcast and what we're talking about today, I just want to take out a small bit of time to do a quick checklist.
Okay.
There's 3 simple questions that I ask myself around the anniversary of our business every year.
Okay.
The first question, are you happy?
Is this your checklist where you're answering, or you're asking me the question, or
how is both of us?
Well, it's your question. You answer first.
So the first question I say is, are you happy? And I can say, yes, I'm happy.
I can say, yes, I'm happy. Even through 2020 being the type of year that it's been, especially in business, I just have to thank God that we are blessed and we were in an industry where we could help people during this time from a financial standpoint, understanding some of the government activities that was happening and also helping business owners strategize. And so while it's been a very horrific year, really, we've been blessed where the business is still consistent. And so I am definitely happy about that, but overall happy to be in business.
Okay, so this is an internal check. So number 1 is about you as an individual, because as business owners, we forget to be individuals. So are you happy just as a person right now in your life? Are you happy?
I'm ecstatic. I'm jumping up.
Awesome.
I'm jumping out of my skin.
Me too. But you bring us to the second question.
Okay.
The second question is, am I still happy in business with my partner? And I say yes.
And I say yes. I definitely say yes.
Okay.
No more to that.
And then the third one is our business growing?
I can say yes.
And I say yes. That's my checklist every year. And if I can check all 3 of those things off, I like to continue business. If something's not off or something's wrong, then those are things that I look at to address. And then maybe say, do I need to stop? Do I not need to stop? Because for me, this is just me now, why I do the checklist. Our marriage is more important than anything to me. Yes. You are the most important thing in my life. Next to me. I mean, I'm pretty important. If I'm not here, then you wouldn't have me. And But I say that even with business, marriage comes first.
Definitely marriage comes first. And listen to what she just said, guys. That checklist didn't have anything to do whether you met goals or didn't meet goals. It's all a reflection of how you're feeling in the business. Because guess what? If you didn't reach goals, if you're still happy in business, if you are still ecstatic about moving, you can always adjust and try even harder. And
100%. And growing doesn't mean that you grew by leaps and bounds. It could be that you learned some new things, that you're restructuring, that things are happening. It's just, is it alive or is it stale? Because we don't want to stale business. But that brings us to our title today.
All right.
Protecting what you built at all costs.
That's right. This is part 2 from last week.
Part 2. So last week we talked about external or outside forces that could come in and kind of cause havoc within the marriage, within the business, right?
Yes. Anything that's outside that can disrupt.
Yep. Outside the household, outside the business. And we had some great, you have to tune in, you have to go back and listen to that one because we're not going to cover that today. But we did say that there were 3 different things that we wanted to talk about. External was the first one. Internal was the second one. And then self-sabotage is the third one. So this is a 3-part series. This tonight is part 2, as Derek said. And we're talking about internal problems, conflicts, internal things that wreak havoc on your marriage and on your business that cause you to what you built, what you took time and energy and sacrifice into can tear it down. And so we want you to protect what you built at all costs. So that checklist was like a preamble into tonight, right? Of protecting, because all of that had to do with inside.
That's right. Inside
the business. All right. So we are here. Welcome to the More Than I Do live virtual podcast with Sherelle and Derek James. And we're talking tonight about internal conflicts, internal issues, internal problems, and how to protect what you have built at all costs. Okay. So when we talk about internal, what do you think we're talking about?
Things that are inside of your house or things that are inside of your business. So maybe inside of your house is children or financial problems, or if it's inside of your business, it could be employees, team members, things of that nature.
Or financial problems.
Or financial problems inside of your business as well. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So let's just get right into it, dig into it. When we talk about internal problems, you know, I always like to start with, I start with family first. And when we talk about the family first and we talk about marriage, especially when we talk about internal problems, it could be as easy as you two not being on the same page. You know, that causes problems that tears up the family, tears up, if you're in business together, tears up the business at the same time. But I want to start right there with just as a couple not being on the same page.
Yeah, you know, it takes me back to one of our first few years being married. Your grandmother would send her clothes and things like order, because she was shopaholic, I think is the best word for her. God rest her soul.
She's a professional shopper. Professional shopper. For herself and others.
Miss her dearly.
But she didn't get paid for it.
No, not at all. Not at all. But she would just send things to
just show up at the doorstep.
And so my perception was, this chick is a shopaholic. What did I get myself into? And that caused an internal disruption between us because I'm working and I'm thinking she's at home just shopping on the Home Shopping Network or wherever, and things just keep coming to the house. You know, I laughed at myself probably about a month ago because I had Amazon coming to the house almost every day.
I think Amazon lives here.
Last month. Now I stopped, but before I know it, something was coming every day. But going back to that story, internally, it caused problems between us because I thought she was a shopaholic and shopping too much.
Yes, but it was not the internal problem that it caused. So of course the grandmother sending stuff was the external issue, right? But the internal issue that he's talking about is I was telling him that I was not buying this stuff. We're very much newlyweds, very much had dated from 2 different states. So, you know, what he knows of me from that point is not a whole lot, right? And even with that, because even I'm always with my grandmother when I was home and we would always be shopping too. But so even with that, it was that he didn't believe because his perception of what he knew to be reality, or what he knew about marriages and women in marriages, and what he knew about what, I don't know where he got it from, but it led him to believe that stop lying on your grandma.
Right.
Don't put your grandma in this. This is your issue. This is your problem. And this can't happen.
Right. Because, you know, where it came from was just watching things, right? Watching TV shows, watching your parents, watching your aunties and things like that, things get ordered and they go immediately to the back of the closet with tags on it or something. And so I'm thinking she's just like them and she's just buying stuff.
Trying to hide it.
And saying, hey, yeah, I didn't buy that. But yeah, so.
But my philosophy has always been, I'm not hiding anything. That's and right. He knows from the beginning, if I bought something, if I went to whatever I did, I mean, I wouldn't intentionally just drag it around the house. I would take it to where it needed to be, but I wasn't trying to hide it, ride it around in my trunk for 20 days until it was one day he was out of the house and then bring it in. If he was home, it came in. If he wasn't home, it came in. And I think that you learn, and he was stopping my blessings, y'all, because she found out and she didn't want to cause conflict. So she stopped buying me stuff.
Yes.
Let's talk about another internal conflict.
From just a misperception.
Yes.
A misperception and being so new and not having the type of communication that we have now. Mm-hmm. Things like that happen or can happen.
Right. So perception. So what he's talking about, an internal conflict between the two of you guys could just be a perception. For something that's perceived. When we thought about the title of this podcast and thought about doing this podcast, we called it More Than I Do, because you realize in marriage is more than what you thought it was going to be when you said I do. As you walk down the aisle and you said I do, marriage and being in business definitely and being married is more than the I do. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those things, perception. You have perception when you're walking down the aisle of what your wife or husband's going to be, how they're going to act, all of these things. Mm-hmm. And they are who they are. And right. The reality of it is I was spoiled. I was loved. And he wasn't used to that. He wasn't used to just things coming. Good thing you didn't live at my house in Georgia when I came to visit you and came home to a TV and then I came home again from visiting you and had a buffet table in the house and all kinds of things. Those was minor things she was buying here.
And I definitely missed those blessings.
See?
And I wish I hadn't had them stopped
right
back then.
Because he would have started getting blessings too. Yeah. But perception.
That's right.
Perception is something that can really ruin a relationship. Mm-hmm. Because that means that you're not listening to the other person because you already perceive what it is, or you're not communicating and you're just taking whatever you think and moving forward with it.
That's it.
So, another thing is kids. Mm-hmm. Kids can be a barrier, whether they're outside kids that are now put in a marriage, which was our situation, mm-hmm. Whether it's your kids together. I won't say what I want to say. It's your kids together. That inside joke that were that you have together, and they're just not doing what they're supposed to do. Different parenting styles with children mm-hmm. really makes the children then play one parent against the other. And then one ends up being the nice guy, and the other one ends up being the bad guy. Because you guys, again, it goes back to communication. You're not on the same page. And so it's like, well, mama said, or daddy said, and it's like, but what did I say type thing? And then that causes conflict between the two of you in the marriage.
Yeah, it definitely caused us to show truly a united front and not just to say that we're a united front, mm-hmm. to truly be a united front. Because, I remember instances where the kids would ask me for something and I'll say, okay, but this one had already told them no. And so I learned quickly that I needed to have a conversation with her before things got out of hand, because yes. I didn't know it's her brother and sister that she took in, and then I just became part of their family, right? Mm-hmm. And so they would call me and say, oh, I need this, or oh, I need that, and I'm like, oh, okay. And next thing you know, I got stuff going down the highway, and she's looking at me like, what in the world are you doing, man? So yeah.
Yes, definitely. When my sister was in, so I raised my brother and sister, mm-hmm. And definitely when my sister was in college. Mm-hmm. Let me just tell you, I get calls all the time. Every week, it never failed. Derek was calling me to say, hey, can you put something in the baby's account? Hey, because she would call him, not me, she would call him and say, this is what I need. And then he would call me because he's at work. he would call me. At that time he was working, and for somebody else, not like you're not working now.
Thanks for clearing that up. That I just didn't stop working. I appreciate that.
But he would call me to go and put it in the bank or to do whatever because he didn't have her information. He just knew that she needed something. And then, of course, mamas, 21 questions. Because it's like, wait a minute, this just happened and that's happened and this is going on and da-da-da-da-da. And no, we just talked about this. And he's like, what?
Right. And I'm at work and I'm like, hey, just go put this in the baby account. Go take care of the child. And I'm getting a 3rd degree. And I'm like, I'm at work. I don't have time to get this 3rd degree. What are you asking me all these different questions for? What is that about?
Trying to pit one against the other, you know? So being a united front, knowing what each other is doing and talking about and what they're saying, and it goes back to communication. And a lot of what we're going to talk about, especially when we talk about internal, it goes back to communication. I believe a lot of it goes back to that. So we talked about perception, we talked about kids. Anything else in family that you inside the family? So we're talking internal stuff in the house stuff.
Yeah.
Finances.
Yeah, definitely finances. And so quick story. When we first got married, I was working, and she moved from Georgia, and finding a job was a little challenging, and she didn't have to.
That's not the truth.
What's not the truth?
You would tell the truth. I had a job offer when I moved here.
Okay, that's right.
And we decided for me not to take it. We don't have to say what it was, but we just decided because of the risk involved.
It was a very risky job, and they were almost having her start from scratch from a career that she was in for 8 years, a long time.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And starting over as an intern really didn't make sense, and I couldn't go for that. Anyway,
you couldn't go for that.
I couldn't go for that. You couldn't go.
Thanks for
that
protecting me.
Right? I got that. I look out for you.
You're such my knight in shining armor.
But anyway, and so I had the another perception that, well, if I'm making the money, I need to pay the bills. And I was paying the bills, and one day she just came out and said, you know what, this is ridiculous. What if something happens to you? How do I know what our financial position is? Who do I know to pay or whatnot? I don't know anything about the finances.
Yeah.
And immediately it took a while, because it was something that I just did. I mean, I've been a grown man for a long time. I had my own apartment, taking care of myself. And so newly married, I'm like, well, I'm going to just make sure I take care of it because I need to do it.
So here was the internal problem. The internal problem was, number one, if something happened or something happened to him, what would happen? But say that the lights went off or the water went out, and I called to say, hey, did we pay the bill? Because I don't know. He takes everything to work and pay it. He would have had an attitude with, what do you think I'm not paying bills?
Right.
And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. See it from the other foot. See, I don't know. I'm not you. I'm not in your head. I have no idea. And I'm not that chick. Now, if you are that chick, hey, it is what it is. I'm not that kind of chick because, like him, I have been grown for a while. I've been raising kids and paying my own bills in my own house. So I was used to understanding and knowing and being a part of and being responsible and as well. Didn't bother me that he was paying it. Let's get it straight now. Didn't bother me that he was paying. It just bothered me that there was no, communication, the lack of communication of what was happening and what was going on. And it was causing conflict because the only time I knew that I could spend money was a little bit of change that he may have given me from time to time. Or in the beginning, because I wasn't working and he was working and we had the luxury of me not to work to start off with, he would ask me like the kids, like, I gave you X amount 2 days ago. What you do with that? And I'm like, excuse me, what? getting used to working and paying my own bills.
Mm-hmm.
And so that became an internal conflict between the two of us because we had two different ways of operating and we needed to come together. And I've seen couples who take their two different ways of operating and it causes conflicts for years because they don't just communicate, hey, this isn't working for me.
Yeah. They just do their thing, the other do their thing, and it's hard to build that way.
It's very hard to build. Now, if that works for you, again. If that road works for you, hey, drive it. But we're talking about people that we've seen, and for us, how that wasn't working. And so we needed to I put some fail safes in place of he paid the bills, but all the bills had my email address. So now, ding, 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 that's a communication. It's not necessarily sitting down all the time and saying, okay, I paid this bill, I paid that. Nobody got time for that.
That's right. Ain't nobody. And for a lot of people that know me, I really don't talk a lot, guys. I really don't. And so me talking now is like, I've grown leaps and bounds.
No. You talking now, this 30 minutes or so that we talk on our podcast is probably 90% of the talking you do in the day outside of necessary having to talk. And so that's a big thing for us is just, hey, keeping me abreast of what's happening and what's going on. So you find ways to communicate and communication. Okay, he doesn't like to talk about it and we don't have time to build lists all the time, even when we were first married. So what did I do? I put my email address on all the bills. So I know when he's paying bills because I get all these dings in my email. Ding, ding, ding. Thank you. Now, if the lights go out, the water went out or whatever else happened, I could look first, which would solve a conflict, right? Of you feeling like, what do you mean I'm not paying bills?
Right. And
then be able to say, oh, okay, they're working on the water. They're working, they turned something off for a little while. Something happened or something like that. That was a big, huge thing at the beginning of our marriage. Oh my God. I think that's huge. The biggest thing that we had to really overcome in the beginning of the marriage was finance, not the fact that we didn't have any finances, but just being on the same page and knowing what was happening with the finances.
Definitely. It's one of those things I had to, let go of my pride. I mean, the reality, guys, I'm a trained accountant. I had an undergraduate degree in accounting. All my work was accounting type work. What do you mean you want to manage the money or you want to know about this? I got this. I'm the genius on this side. I got this handled. But the reality is she's definitely a better saver than I am. So I need to give her all the accounting. So yeah.
Absolutely. 100. I mean, when you talk about Christmas and you got an Excel spreadsheet with amounts of how much you can spend in a budget, I'm just saying,
hey,
it's that serious.
Hey, that spreadsheet turned me on. I like that.
I know it did. But that takes us over to the business side of things, really, because our business is a financial firm and we partner with business owners to help them understand what's happening financially in their company, but more importantly, to make sure that it's running effectively and right alongside of operations and they're not limping along.
Right.
So when we talk, hence, when we first got married, we didn't know we were going to own a finance company. So the irony, right? The irony of this whole thing.
That's right.
But we definitely communicate when it comes to finances and what's happening and what we're spending and what we're saving and where's it going and all of that stuff.
Definitely.
So now.
And I hope it feels like you're not pulling it out of me because, early on, I really felt like anything she wanted to know, she had to really go in and pull it out.
We had arguments. I mean, we've never had we've never had, I don't know what you call it, that most couples, we've just had
just some bad arguments. It is what it is. It's a bad argument.
It's like, how dare you?
Right.
And no, I'm not doing that. He was like the tree planted by the riverside. He was not going to be moved.
Deeply rooted.
You just brought up finance numbers, dollars, anything like that, and he immediately was like, oh. And now, no, it's not that way now. We've grown a lot in that. But it was because, number one, I communicated with him.
Mm-hmm.
Patience,
Mm-hmm.
right? Grace.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm sure there's things on other sides that he had to communicate with me. I was probably saying that same tree, and he had to have patience and grace, but be open and honest. And not only be open and honest, but the other side listening and hearing.
That's right.
And that's exactly what he did. Is when we talked about finances and that type of thing, I put some fail safes in place, but at the end of the day, it was him saying, okay, I need to listen and hear.
That's right. Yep.
Because one side can talk all day long. If the other side ain't listening and hearing.
Yeah. I remember a lot of, as I think back, a lot of conversations, she would be talking and I would just be sitting here like this, nodding my head. And in reality, it's like the Charlie Brown, womp, 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 womp.
Mm-hmm.
And that was unfair to both of us.
It was.
Yeah. So anyway.
But you've grown.
Yeah.
So that segues into our business.
Yep.
So when we talk about internal conflicts in business,
Mm-hmm.
Let's just finish this segue from finances and finance over to business.
Okay.
Does that work?
That works.
So when you have conflicts or finances are a hardship in the business, that causes conflict and hardship in the relationship and can be an enemy against what you built.
Yeah. We tell our clients all the time, if you're having a bad day in your business,
mm-hmm.
you're having a bad day at home financially.
Mm-hmm.
If you're having a bad financial day in your home, the business is going to suffer because where are you going to go? Mm-hmm. And so they're direct correlation. We say business and personal should be separated in the bank account, but other than that, you are the person growing this company.
For small businesses.
For small
yes,
businesses.
Absolutely, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about finances, again, it goes to communication. If you guys are running a business together and there's financial issues, it kind of goes to kind of what you said a little bit earlier. Just because you may be the expert may not be the best place for you to sit in the company.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that you need to hire it out and have someone that's an unbiased party take over and look after the books and make sure things are happening. Or it may be that the other partner is better suited to do it. Mm-hmm. Who knows? It depends. You take the inventory, strengths and weaknesses, and what you have time and need for, and then you figure that out from that way. But finance is definitely, you start a business, and if you're having financial trouble, then that means you're pulling money from other places to put in the business for the business to continue to run. Mm-hmm. Or that you're limping along and you're barely getting by, which causes stress and anxiety and frustration, and it ties your hands with resources and things that you want to do, late payrolls and all kinds of stuff. It can get you all kinds of mess. Mm-hmm. A lot of those things happen just as a personal too as well. So you want to make sure that you're on the same page and you're understanding what's happening financially, whether it's in the marriage or in the business. You got to understand what's happening financially. And if one of the persons, so this is a question that we've gotten, if one person in the business or the partnership or the marriage is a spender, how do you work that out? That's a hard one, right?
That's a hard one.
Yeah, but we see it all the time happen.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think for me, when I see that with our clientele, it's easy to just go to the numbers, right? Mm-hmm. Because we always say people can lie, but numbers never lie.
Numbers never lie.
And so, a lot of times a business owner will say, yeah, I only spent $4,000, $5,000 mm-hmm. here or there, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And we go in and we do a true look at the numbers and a true breakdown, mm-hmm. and then show them, well, we had one case where they thought was 5,000, but it was 3 times that. It was like 15,000.
Yes.
And it really opened their eyes, mm-hmm. because
mm-hmm.
you can see it mm-hmm. on paper, mm-hmm. and not just a thought in your mind.
That's good. I think that's a great place to start. Is just being with the black and white numbers to see and understand what detriment you're causing to the household or to the business. Now, there may be some help that needs to be gotten there, and there may be that the person is just selfish. I don't know. This is just my opinions, okay? This is not legal. This is my opinion at this moment.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, because if you know that you're causing a detriment, or I know that I'm causing a detriment to our household or to our business, and I continue to spend regardless, then I have, or you have, no regard for what we're trying to build. And I would say that it's deeper than that. Financial problems, and this is a great segue, financial problems are not financial problems.
That's right.
That I'm sure it's deeper. There's something going on in the relationship. There's something going on with the person. There's something else that's there, and it's not just about money.
That's right.
I think that's a great place to put a period.
Okay.
Bing. Now, what else in business? Staff.
Yeah. Staff is definitely a good one, whether it's employees or contractors.
Yes.
At times we have internal conflict where staff members aren't meeting deadlines. And when they don't meet deadlines, then it causes a problem of things that we have to deliver to our clientele.
Yeah. So it causes bottom line problems. Right? Or staff not meeting deadlines, staff that one bad apple or something, that's just not wanting to comply with the standards or the rules, or staff that is just having a lot of issues and isn't working out for the company culture-wise.
Right. And I got one more. Staff who really have great intentions, but they're doing things so backwards that it's causing all kinds of trouble. But they truly think they're doing the company some good.
If they knew they were doing the company harm, it would hurt them.
Yep.
Absolutely. We've seen that. Oh my gosh, we've seen that. So the question is, what do you do in those cases? Well, the buck stops with you because you are the owner of the business. And if you don't have anyone else that's doing the hiring and firing for you, I mean, you could put together evaluations, kind of like a reprimand, do something like that. Depending on the severity of it, there could be training that's needed, additional training that's needed, put on probation, or even fired. Because sometimes it's not about doing those steps. Sometimes it's at that point, if it's a person who just doesn't want to follow the rules and they can cause more damage by staying than leaving. And I don't care if it's your best producer. They can cause more damage, because if they think that they can just do whatever they want to do, guess what's going to happen to the rest of your staff? So you got to get those bad apples out. Some of the other ones where they're thinking intentionally that they're helping and different things like that, it may just be charting the course, getting them back on course, training, things of that nature. What you got?
I was just going to add, I've seen where we had some clients before where the owner and the staff, the management staff, they were all friends. Like, sharing, always eating together, going to parties together, hanging out, going on vacations together, and things like that.
And it makes it complex.
It makes it complex when the owner finally gets to a place that they want to grow, but then they see that some of the management styles and attitudes aren't where they need to be.
You know what, you bring up a big thing as we talk about these internal conflicts of not letting or protecting what you have built. A lot of times, especially with small business owners, especially because it's such a lonely road, they tend to treat staff as if they're management. And so you confide in them, you tell them things, and then they get certain attitudes about things and about people and about customers and about different things as well. And then you can't get them to perform the way that they want to. I think that's a very good point that you brought up, is that, and it's where you don't need to treat staff like management. You need to go out and find those places. I call it council of wisdom is what I've always called it. But places as an employer or a business owner, a group that you have that you can confide in and talk to and share things with, that shouldn't be shared with the staff, because that's another internal issue that happens that could tear down what you built very quickly, because then they'll hold you hostage by asking for higher salaries and rates. We've seen that, and you can't, you do it because out of obligation, but it doesn't justify their job. It doesn't justify what they're doing. And that hits the bottom line, that hits who you need to hire.
Yep.
We've seen it in the sense of people just totally disrespecting the owner after a while, which causes conflict here, right? And which causes conflict within the business, for the business to get to where it needs to go grow, or not coming to work on time, not opening up on time, talking to customers any kind of way, all those things. We can't have that. You got to protect at all costs.
Yeah, definitely. I've had clients tell me all the time, you know, I enjoy your company, what you guys do for us, but just having someone to talk to sometimes makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100% makes all the difference in the world. I think we got this internal thing down. Is there anything else from a business standpoint? Make sure we're having good communication. Make sure that we have good rapport with the staff. So let me make sure I clear this up, and you just don't leave like we ain't supposed to have no relationship. Good rapport, because people are one of your it is the most valuable resource.
It's the most valuable resource in your
And
company.
so you want to have good rapport with them, but you have to understand an employee-employer relationship, or owner-contractor relationship. I'm not saying you can't have friends that contract for you or work for you. I'm not saying that.
Right.
And we have family businesses that work that way, but I'm just telling you, I fired family before. I've hired family and I've fired family.
You fired me once, so hey.
Oh yeah, he had to go. He wasn't acting right, and he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. Bad apples, we ain't having them. I think he was excited when I fired him.
I was happy to be fired, guys, especially from that particular role.
Right. It's like, this ain't working. And really what it was looking and seeing things that were not working. The systems or processes that were in place weren't working, or the people aren't following the systems and processes. So it may be the person, or it may be the system or process. So you want to make sure you're looking at everything. And that's where that communication comes in. That's where you're not having a perception that just because I hired this person, they should already know how to do all these things. Have a training period.
Yeah, definitely. Train them how you want them to do it, because if not, they'll do it their way and not your way. And that might be detrimental to protecting what you're building.
Yes, and then holding them accountable for what their job is, having job descriptions. That also internally has hurt a lot of businesses, because people are just doing 20 million jobs, and you're trying to figure out, well, no, you're supposed to be doing this over here. Well, you said I could do this, this, and this. So you've got to manage the people. Manage the people.
And again, like you said, stick with the job descriptions, because we're all human, and we're going to gravitate and do the stuff that I actually really like.
Not the stuff I don't want to.
And not the stuff that I don't want to. And sometimes the stuff that you don't want to is actually in your job description.
Not only is it in your job description, it's the important thing that needs to be done for the company. All right. So I think and this goes for your stuff. You're the only person, if you're the one employee in your company, check this out as an employee. Go through these things for yourself. You know, if you guys are the business owners and the employees, do the checklist still, because you practice and you act now like where you want to go and what you want to be. I always say, not small business, it's all business. And so we a lot of times get stuck on the small and not the business part. So it's all business, and you want to make sure that that's still happening regardless.
That's right. Yep.
You got anything else? Because I think that we are done.
Okay, awesome.
Hey guys, so this has been Sherelle and Derek talking about protecting what you have built at all costs. Part 2, we hit a home run, I believe, with internal conflicts, problems, issues in marriage and in business. Of course, we haven't exhausted every single thing, but hey, these are some of the big core ones that we see that cause problems, and they're easy to attack. Some of the first places to look for.
Yep. And if you have thoughts or ideas, please feel free to connect with us at morethanIdo.life. We would like to hear from you.
Yes, 100%. Shout out to Every Dot Black, Jimmy Davis, and Kim Smith. We love you guys over there. You can catch our podcast on the Every Dot Black platform on Patreon, and check out Every Dot Black, where Dot Black is the new
.com.
All right, Sherelle and Derek, this is More Than I Do live virtual podcast. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye.